Hello everyone, in this video we're going to review AP Precalculus Topic 3.15 Rates of change in polar functions. Alright, before we're going to dive into the problem 151, let's review this concept. If you have the plus sign times plus sign, the answer must be positive, right? Negative times negative, the answer must be positive, right? Because they have the same sign. Negative times positive, the answer is negative, right? And positive times negative, the answer is negative, right? Now, we're going to use the plus sign and minus sign to represent negative, decreasing, positive, and increasing, right? So, this is negative, we're going to use the negative side, right? Decreasing, which means negative side, right? So, negative times negative is going to be positive, right? This one is positive right here. Right? So the answer choice A could be right. Now, answer choice B, this is positive, we're going to use the plus side, right? Decreasing, we're going to use the negative side, right? So positive times negative is going to be negative, but this one is positive, right? So the answer choice B is wrong. We need to eliminate it, right? Now, next one, negative is going to be negative side, right? Increasing is going to be plus side, right? So plus side times minus side, it should be minus side, right? This one is minus side, right? So answer choice C could be right. And the last one, positive, we're going to use the plus side, right? Increasing plus side, right? So plus side times plus side is going to be plus, right? This one is minus, right? So the answer choice D is wrong. We need to eliminate, right? So we have A and C could be right. Now next one, we need to sketch this one, right? And this one very easy to sketch. You already learned in previous lesson, right? So if you don't know how to sketch this one, just revisit the video in the description below. Okay. Alright, so here's the graph of the function f of theta equals 2 plus 3 cosine theta, right? Now you know that the maximum is 5, right? Because the maximum equals the midline plus the amplitude, right? 2 plus 3 equals 5, right? The midline equals 2. And the minimum is going to be 2 minus 3 is going to be negative 1, right? And you see that the period is 2 pi, right? Because b equals 1. And you have period equal 2 pi divided by b, right? So it will be 2 pi, right? And cosine function starts from the maximum, right? Back down to the midline right here, go down to the minimum, back up to the midline and go up to the maximum, right? Alright, now we're going to check answer choice A and C, right? Now we look at the interval right here, 5 pi over 6 to pi, right? We have pi right here, but we don't have 5 pi over 6, right? So 5 pi over 6 could be somewhere else right here, right? It could be right here, right? Because 5 pi over 6 is between pi over 2 and pi, right? Now we need to check to see if 5 pi over 6 is positive or negative. If it's positive, it should be somewhere right here. If it's negative, it should be somewhere right here, right? So we need to substitute 5 pi over 6 for theta into this equation right here, right? So we have f of 5 pi over 6. It's going to be 2 plus 3 cosine of 5 pi over 6, right? Now it's going to be 2 plus 3 times negative root 3 over 2, right? So it's going to be 2 plus negative 3 root 3 over 2, right? And it's going to be negative for sure, right? So if it's less than 0, 5 pi over 6 should be right here. Right? The point should be right here. And then you have the interval from 5 pi over 6 to pi is going to be right here. Alright, now observe that this interval is below the axis, right? This one below the axis, so it's going to be negative, right? And you see that it's going down, so it should be decreasing, right? So you see that it's negative and decreasing. So then the distance is increasing, right? So the answer is A, right? And you see that it's getting further away from the origin, right? So it's getting bigger, 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 right? So the radius is bigger. Now question 152, similar to 151, right? And then we need to sketch the graph of this one in the rectangular system, right? Alright, so here's the graph of f of theta equals 2 minus 4 sine theta, right? Right, the maximum is 6, the minimum is -2, right? The midline is 2, right? And you see that there is a negative sign in front of amplitude, right? So there is a reflection over the midline, right? Now we're gonna check it. The polar function r equal f of theta, where f of theta equals 2 minus 4 sine theta is graphed in the polar coordinate system for theta from 0 to 2 pi. On which of the following intervals of theta is the distance between the points with polar coordinates f of theta, and the origin decreasing? So the distance is decreasing, which means this one is negative, right? Negative can be written as negative times positive, right? Or positive times negative, right? So what does that mean? Negative, which means the function is below the axis, right? The function less than 0. Positive right here, which means the function is increasing, right? Now positive right here, which means the function above the axis, right? And this one, the function is decreasing, right? So it's make the distance between the point and the origin decreasing, right? So keep that in mind. Now we're going to check for every single interval. The first interval is going to be pi over 6 to pi over 2, right? Pi over 2 right here. Now we need to find where pi over 6 goes, right? So we need to substitute pi over 6 for theta into this equation right here. We need to find f of pi over 6, right? So we have f of pi over 6 is going to be 2 minus 4 sine of pi over 6, right? And then sine of pi over 6 equals 1/2, right? So if we simplify this one, it's going to be 0, right? Theta equals pi over 6 is a 0, right? So it could be right here, right? So we have the interval, it's going to be from here to here, right? And you see that this interval is below the axis, so it's going to be negative, right? Now, it's negative and decreasing, right? Because it's going down, right? So it could be negative. Negative times negative is going to be positive, right? But we need negative right here. We need decreasing, right? So the answer choice A is wrong. Now, next one, 5 pi over 6 to pi, right? Again, we need to calculate f of 5 pi over 6, right? So it's going to be 2 minus 4 sine of 5 pi over 6, right? So it could be 2 minus 4 sine of 5 pi over 6, it could be 1/2 again, right? So this guy is still 0, right? So theta equals 5 pi over 6 is a 0 of the function. It should be right here, right? Now the interval should be from here to here, right? This interval is above the axis, so it can be positive. And this interval is increasing, right? So it can be another positive. Positive times positive should be positive, right? So which means the distance is increasing, but we need the distance right here decreasing, right? So the answer choice B is wrong, right? Now question C. 5 pi over 4 to 3 pi over 2, right? We don't see 5 pi over 4 right here, right? So we need to calculate f of 5 pi over 4 to see where it is, right? It's gonna be 2 minus 4 times sine of 5 pi over 4. Sine of 5 pi over 4 equals negative root 2 over 2, right? So it can be 2 minus 4 times negative root 2 over 2. Now, if you simplify this one, it's going to be 2 plus 2 root 3. So it's going to be positive, right? If it's positive, it should be above the axis, right? So it's going to be somewhere else right here between pi and 3 pi over 2. So it's going to be right here, right? Middle between pi and 3 pi over 2. This one is 5 pi over 4, right? Now the interval should be from here to here, right? Now it's above the axis, so it's going to be positive, right? And it's increasing, so it's going to be another positive. Positive times positive is going to be positive, but we need negative right here, decreasing. So the answer choice C is wrong, right? Now the last one, 5 pi over 3 to 11 pi over 6. We don't need to calculate it. We know that this interval right here should be between 3 pi over 2 and 2 pi, right? So it's going to be somewhere else right here, right? This one right here is 5 pi over 3. And this one right here is going to be 11 pi over 6, right? Alright, so you have the interval, it's going to be right here. Now you see that this interval is above the axis, so it's going to be positive. And it's going to be decreasing, so it's going to be negative. Positive times negative is going to be negative. This is what we need, right? Because the distance is decreasing, which means negative. So the answer is D. Now let's move on to question 153. The polar function r equals f of theta, where f of theta equals 1 minus 2 cosine 2 theta, is graphed in the polar coordinate system for theta from 0 to 2 pi. On which of the following intervals of theta is the distance between the points with polar coordinates f of theta, and the origin increasing, which means plus sign, right? Now we just review this one. Plus sign can be written as negative times negative equals positive, right? Or positive times positive equals positive, right? So one of this one, right? Alright, so first you need to sketch this guy on the rectangular system, right? Alright, if you wrap it correctly, it should be something like this. Alright, since you have the negative side in front of the amplitude, so there is a reflection. And the period is going to be pi, because P equal 2 pi divided by B. B in this direction is 2 right here, right? So keep that in mind, it's going to be pi. Now I need to extend this one to one more cycle. So it's going to be 2 cycles right here. Because I see 7 pi over 6 right here is greater than pi, right? So keep that in mind. 0 to pi over 6, it could be inside the 0 to pi over 4, right? It's going to be inside of this one, right? If it's inside of this one, it should be negative somewhere right here. If it's inside the interval from 0 to pi over 4, right? And then you see that there is a portion below the axis right here, right? So it is negative, right? And then you see that the function is increasing because it's going up, right? So it can be positive. Negative times positive equals negative, right? But we need positive here, right? So answer choice A is incorrect, right? Now next one, pi over 2 to 5 pi over 6. It's going to be from here to here, somewhere right here, right? Now observe that 5 pi over 6 is greater than 3 pi over 4. So 5 pi over 6 could be somewhere right here, right? So you have the portion right here below the axis, right? This one below the x-axis, then the function is negative, right? And it's decreasing, right? So it's going to be another negative. So it turns out to be positive. This is what we need, right? But if you look at the one above the axis right here, right? The remaining one right here. This one is above the axis, so it can be positive, right? And it's decreasing, right? So it can be negative. So the answer must be negative, but we need positive, right? So answer choice B is incorrect, right? Now answer choice C, from pi to 7 pi over 6. 7 pi over 6 is between pi and 5 pi over 4, right? So it could be somewhere else right here, right? And then you have the interval, it's going to be from here to here, right? And you see that this interval is below the axis, right? If it's below the axis, it should be negative, right? And then you see that the function is increasing within this interval, which means it's going to be positive, right? Negative times positive is going to be negative, right? But we need positive, right? So the answer choice C is incorrect, right? Now the last one, from 7 pi over 6 to 3 pi over 2. So it could be the interval from here to here. Now observe that 7 pi over 6 is a zero of this function, right? 7 pi over 6 actually right here. Why? Because if you substitute 7 pi over 6 for theta into this equation, you will have f of 7 pi over 6 equals 1 minus 2 cosine of 7 pi over 6 multiplied by 2, right? So it's going to be 1 minus 2 cosine of 7 pi over 3, right? So this one can be written as 1 minus 2 cosine of pi over 3 plus 2 pi, right? And then you just ignore the period right here. So it's going to be 1 minus 2 cosine of pi over 3, right? It's going to be 1 minus 2 times 1 half, right? So it could be 0. So theta equals 7 pi over 6 is a 0, right? So within this interval, there is no portion below the axis, right? So it's completely above the axis, right? So it's going to be from here to here. Alright, so within this interval, you see that it's going to be above the axis, so it should be positive. And the function is increasing, right? So it could be another positive. Positive times positive, it could be positive. This is what we need right here, right? So the distance between the point and the origin is increasing. The answer must be D. Now let's move on to question 154. In the polar coordinate system, the graph of the polar function r equals f of theta is shown with a domain of all real numbers. Theta within 0 to 2 pi. On this interval of theta, the graph has no holes, passes through each point exactly one time, and as theta increases, the graph passes through the point labeled A, B, C, and D in that order. On which of the following intervals is the average rate of change of R with respect to theta least? Now you know that the average rate of change is given by the formula f of B minus f of A over B minus A. Now, case number 1. If f of B greater than f of A, then does that mean f of B minus f of A greater than 0, right? So if this guy greater than 0, the average rate of change is positive, right? You have f of B greater than f of A. The average rate of change is positive, right? Now second case, if f of B less than f of A, then f of B minus f of A less than 0, right? Look at this one. If it's less than 0, the whole thing should be negative, right? So second one, f of B less than f of A. The sign of the average rate of change is negative, right? Now the third case, if f of B equals f of A, then f of B minus f of A equals 0, right? So you look at this one right here, the average rate of change is 0, right? So f of B equals f of A. The average rate of change is 0, right? Now, you look at this one right here, least, which means this one right here. If it's negative, it's going to be least, right? So, we just check from A to B. From A to B. You see that at point A and point B, you have the same distance from the origin right here, which means the radius should be the same. If the radius is the same, the apprecalculus change is 0, right? So this is not the answer choice, right? We need least, which means we need negative, right? Now from B to C, you see that the radius is going to be like this, right? And you see that from B to C, it's go this way, right? And the radius getting bigger and bigger. If the radius getting bigger and bigger, which means f of b minus f of a positive, right? It's not the least, right? So the answer choice B is wrong. Now next one, from B to D, right? It's gonna be this one right here. So within this interval, we need to split this one into two intervals. From here to here, it's getting bigger and bigger, right? Because the radius is getting bigger, right? But from here to here, the radius getting smaller and smaller, right? So it's conflict, right? Within the interval from B to D is conflict, right? So answer choice C is not correct. Now answer choice D, from D to A. From D to A, you see that the radius getting smaller and smaller, right? A is least, right? It's right here. You see that? The distance getting smaller and smaller from D to A. So if the radius getting smaller and smaller, which means f of b less than f of a, the sign of apprecalculus change should be negative, right? And then this one is the least. So the answer must be D. Now let's move on to question 155. 155 is opposite to 154, right? We do exactly the same thing. Now answer choice A, from A to B, which means from here to here. Alright, you see that the radius getting bigger and bigger, right? If the radius getting bigger and bigger, which means f of b greater than f of a, then the sign of the apprecalculus change must be positive, right? So this one is the radius one. So the answer choice A could be correct. Let's check for the other answer. Now the second one, from A to C, is going to be from here to here. And you see that they have the same radius because they are equal distance from the pole, right? So this one right here, the apprecalculus change is 0, right? This is not the radius, right? This one is positive. Now the next one, from B to C, from B to C, it's going to be from here to here. And you see that the radius getting smaller and smaller, right? From B is the biggest one, right? And then it's getting smaller and smaller. You see that? So if it's getting smaller and smaller, f of b less than f of a, right? Which means the sign of the apprecalculus change is negative, right? So this one is the least. And then from B to D, it should be right here, right? Now the radius getting smaller and smaller. It should be negative right here, right? You will see it. Alright, so finally the answer choice A is correct. Now question 156. The polar function R equals f of theta, where f of theta equals 4 cosine 2 theta, is graphed in the polar coordinate system. As theta varies from theta equals pi over 4 to theta equals 3 pi over 4. How is the distance between the origin and the point with polar coordinates f of theta changing? Right? So in order to do this one, we need to sketch this one in the rectangular system. Alright, so here's the graph of f of theta equals 4 cosine 2 theta, right? Now, we need to check this interval right here. From pi over 4 to 3 pi over 4. So I'm going to look at this one. Pi over 4 to 3 pi over 4. It's going to be two intervals from pi over 4 to pi over 2, right? And another interval, it should be from pi over 2 to 3 pi over 4, right? Now, the question is, how's the distance between the origin and the point changing, right? So we need to compare the radius from this interval to the origin, right? Now look at this one right here. You see that from pi over 4 to pi over 2, the radius is getting bigger and bigger because it's further away from the pole, right? Now, from pi over 2 to 3 pi over 4, the radius getting smaller. Look, right here is the maximum, and then it's getting smaller and smaller. You will see it, right? So the distance is increasing, then decreasing. The answer must be C. Now let's move on to question 157. Consider the graph of the polar function R equals f of theta, where f of theta equals 1 minus 2 sine theta in the polar coordinate system. Which of the following statements about the R equals f of theta is true over the interval 2 pi over 3 to 3 pi over 4, right? First, we need to sketch this one in the rectangular system. Alright, so here's the graph. Now be careful, there is a negative sign in front of amplitude, so there is a reflection over the midline, right? Now question A. The average rate of change of the radius with respect to theta is positive, and the points on the graph are above the x-axis, right? Now we need to check for the average rate of change first to see if it's positive or negative, right? So we need to calculate f of b and f of a. We need to compare, right? If f of b greater than f of a, then the average rate of change is positive, right? F of b is right here, right? So we have f of 3 pi over 4. Substitute 3 pi over 4 for theta into this equation right here, right? We have 1 minus 2 sine of 3 pi over 4. Sine of 3 pi over 4 equals root 2 over 2, right? So it could be 1 minus 2 times root 2 over 2. So it could be 1 minus root 2, right? Now we need to calculate f of a, which means f of 2 pi over 3, right? So it's going to be 1 minus 2 sine of 2 pi over 3, right? Now it's going to be 1 minus 2 times root 3 over 2, right? So it could be 1 minus root 3, right? Next one, we need to check f of b minus f of a, right? So it's going to be f of b right here, 1 minus root 2, subtract f of a, which means 1 minus root 3, right? And then it's going to be 1 minus root 2 minus 1 plus root 3 when you distribute negative 1 right here, right? So the answer must be root 3 subtract root 2, which is positive, right? If it's positive, I need to eliminate the answer B and D because it's a negative, right? Now I'm going to check to see if the points on the x-axis are below the axis. First, I need to find the zero of this function, right? I need to find the zero right here. So in order to find the zero, I just let this one equals 0, right? So it's going to be 1 minus 2 sine theta equals 0, right? So it's going to be sine theta equals 1/2, right? And then theta equals pi over 6. Theta equals 5 pi over 6, right? So pi over 6 is less than pi over 2, so it's not the case, right? So this one is not right. 5 over 6 should be right here. So this guy is 5 pi over 6. Now we know that 3 pi over 4 is less than 5 pi over 6, right? So then 2 pi over 3 and 3 pi over 4 must be on the left of 5 pi over 6, right? So 3 pi over 4 could be somewhere right here, right? And 2 pi over 3 could be somewhere right here, right? And then you have the interval, it's going to be from here to here. This interval is below the x-axis, right? So the answer must be C. This one is above the axis. Now question 158. Consider the graph of the polar function r equals f of theta, where f of theta equals 3 times sine theta cosine theta in the polar coordinate system. As theta increase on the interval pi over 2 to 3 pi over 4. Which of the following statements is true about the points on the graph of r equals f of theta in the xy plane, right? Now, in order to do this one, I'm going to copy this problem to the whiteboard because I need to use the unit circle. Now, the first thing I need to do is to find the zero of this guy, right? So how do I do it? I need to let f of theta equals 0. This guy is the same thing as 3 times sine of theta times cosine of theta equals 0. This one is the zero product, right? So I need each of this one equals 0, right? So I have sine theta equals 0 and cosine theta equals 0, right? Now if sine theta equals 0, theta equals k pi, right? And cosine theta equals 0, theta equals k times pi over 2, right? Where k is the integer, right? Now if k equals 0, you get 0 for the first one, right? You get 0 for the second one, right? K equals 1, you get pi, right? On the bottom, you get pi over 2, right? K equals 2, you get 2 pi. This guy, you get 3 pi over 2, right? Etc. Alright, now I have the 0, I need to draw the number line. I put 0 right here. The next one should be pi over 2, right? Next one should be pi. Next one should be 3 pi over 2. Next one should be 2 pi. Alright, now I'm going to check for the side in each interval right here. From 0 to pi over 2, it's going to be the first quadrant right here. Right? This first quadrant, sine, cosine, positive, right? F of theta is positive, right? So this guy is positive. Now, second one, the interval from pi over 2 to pi is going to be right here, right? Sine is positive and cosine is negative, right? Keep in mind, you have a trick to memorize this one. All students take calculus, right? The first quadrant are trigonometric function has a positive value, right? The second quadrant only side positive, the rest one should be negative. The third one tangent is positive, the rest one should be negative. And the last one cosine is positive, and the rest one should be negative. So keep that in mind. Second quadrant sine is positive, cosine is negative. So if you multiply this guy up, it's going to be negative, right? So it's going to be negative right here. The third quadrant, pi to 3 pi over 2 is going to be right here. This quadrant, sine and cosine is negative, right? So if sine and cosine is negative, when you multiply them up, it's going to be positive, right? So this guy should be positive. And the last one, from here to here, only cosine positive, right? Cosine is positive, sine is negative. The answer must be negative, right? So this one is negative. Alright. Now we're going to check the interval right here. Pi over 2 to 3 pi over 4. Pi over 2 right here. 3 pi over 4 right here, which means it's inside this interval right here, right? So 3 pi over 4 could be right here. Within this interval, the radius is still negative, right? So if the radius is negative, the function is below the x-axis, right? So then you need to eliminate C and D, right? Because it's say above the axis, right? Now you need to check to see if it's getting farther from the origin or closer to the origin. In order to do that one, we need to check for the average rate of change. Now the formula for the average rate of change is going to be f of b minus f of a over b minus a. This one is a. This one is b, right? So you have f of 3 pi over 4 subtract f of pi over 2 over 3 pi over 4 subtract pi over 2. Now substitute 3 pi over 4 for theta in this equation. So we have 3 sine of 3 pi over 4 cosine 3 pi over 4 minus this one right here 3 sine pi over 2 cosine of pi over 2 over 3 pi over 4 subtract pi over 2 is going to be pi over 4, right? Sine of 3 pi over 4 is going to be root 2 over 2, right? So this guy equals 3 times root 2 over 2. Cosine 3 pi over 4 equals negative root 2 over 2, right? Now this one cosine pi over 2 equals 0, so the whole thing right here is 0, right? It's going to be pi over 4, right? Now simplify this one, it's going to be root 2 over 2 times root 2 over 2 is going to be negative 1/2, right? So it's going to be 3 times negative 1/2 over pi over 4, right? So this one is negative 3 over 2 over pi over 4, right? Now you need to multiply the top and bottom by 4, right? Because I see 4 right here. This one cancel out. So it could be negative 3. This one cancel. So it could be times 2, right? Over pi left right here. So it could be negative 6 over pi, which is negative, right? So if the average rate of change is negative, the function is decreasing, right? Now previously, we know that the function is below the axis, which means it's going to be negative, right? Minus sign to represent the negative, right? Decreasing should be minus sign. This guy times this guy is going to be plus sign, which means increasing, right? So the radius is increasing. If the radius is increasing, it's getting further away from the origin, right? So the answer must be A. And it's good time to stop. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Remember that if you failing to prepare, you're preparing to fail.
just like tall buildings, as the chemicals they take us higher. The night's young, and it's just begun, as she puts her hand